Welcome everyone to another indie showcase here on the Game Wisdom channel. Each week I spotlight 6 of the many games we play here and what we play for our Wednesday night streams. If you'd like to submit a game for a future piece, please get in touch. All the games shown tonight are either press key submissions, demos, or games from my massive backlog. And we're beginning with the play of Yaga. This is a kind of action, kind of very light, I think, roguelike element style game. The story is that we play as our friend here, who is the most unluckiest person in the kingdom. When bad luck falls upon him, he has to go out and complete a quest for the king in order to reclaim his luck. So the gameplay itself is pure action adventure, where there's a heavy emphasis on choice. As you decide how Ivan responds to specific characters and situations will affect his personality, which will not only change how the story plays, but also affect how his own stats and abilities grow as well. You'll be making a lot of choices in terms of what areas you explore and how you're going to get through them. But this is still purely an action game. It's going to be running around beating up bad guys, dodging out of the way, and hopefully not dying. Now, the concept of luck comes in, as you can decide certain aspects that can affect how easy or hard the game will be. And it is a very interesting idea. The thing that kind of stopped me from playing this game was that I really wasn't seeing too much in terms of different elements in the action side of things, and it began to get a little bit repetitive for me. But again, though, this is coming from somebody who plays a whole lot of action games, and I think there's a really great concept here for Yaga. And if you're looking for kind of another decision focused action game where your choices apparently do matter, I would say give this one a check. For our next game, we have Gem Wizard's Tactics. Keep in mind that this footage is from a pre-release build of the game. It is currently out now, and what you see may not represent the current version of it. But what we have here is a very imaginative and very difficult take on kind of tactical strategy with some roguelike elements. Imagine if, Fire Emblem or Advance Wars combined with Slay the Spire in a very weird pairing. But we are tasked with defeating evil demons who have invaded the land, and to do that, we're going to take things back one region at a time. So the tactical elements of this game is that you have the different factions. Each faction has characters that have their own unique abilities, their own specials, and whatnot. And it's up to you to figure out the best way of using them all. Now, the twist of this game is that for each map that you play, not only do you have Fog of War and a lot of the standbys of the tactical strategy genre, but enemies constantly respawn, they'll regenerate. So it's a madcap rush to get the resource that you need, the gem powers, and also complete your objectives before you are overran. Now, a big element of Gem Wizard's Tactics is that it's a lot about unit and field manipulation. That you have abilities that can bump characters, move them around, let them interact with the environment, elements along those lines. One faction has a lot of water-based characters, and they'll gain specific bonuses if they are in water, or they can knock or move into water. And the footage you're seeing really doesn't do this game justice, I feel, especially in terms of the depth that's here. Now, where the roguelike Slay the Spire kind of influence comes in is that you have to decide before each mission which one you go on. That affects what units that you can possibly recruit from that specific fight. If a character is killed during a match or during a round like this, they are off the field. They're permanently gone, and you'll have to replace them. So the challenge of the game is doing enough on the maps to get enough resources that you need, while keeping your units alive so that you'll have enough to keep your army sustained as you get further into the game. And this is one of those titles I really do want to go back to and give it a check now that it's officially out. This is definitely advanced tactical strategy. If games like Fire Emblem, Wargroove, Advance Wars, if they prove to be too complicated for you or you didn't enjoy them, Gem Wizard's Tactics I think will be above and beyond that. But if you're a fan of this kind of design and looking for a very original and different take on it, then definitely give this one a check. For our next game, this is Operation Steel. And this was played as a demo the developers submitted. And what we have here is more of a shoot 'em up with roguelike elements. This is not the same as what we saw with a game like Monolith. That was more of a shmup-like. But your goal is to explore and shoot your way through different planets, collect power-ups and upgrades, and of course beat the big bad boss at the end. Now, the story page promises that the levels are going to be procedurally generated, and from what I played on the demo, it was kind of hard to tell. There are only a few levels unlocked, but the game does feature multiple ships that you can find, and every time you beat a mini-boss, you get to choose from one of different randomly chosen power-ups, which you can then take in the next level provided that you survive. Credits are used after each mission in order to either repair your ship or buy more upgrades, and so on and so forth. From what we played of it on stream, it looks like this is going to be a fairly decent combination of shmup and roguelike. Again, I don't know from what we played of it how much of the procedural or roguelike elements are going to be in the final product, but if you are a fan of shoot 'em ups and are looking for one that has a bit more replayability to it without going as far as being run focused, as say something like Monolith and some of the other shmup roguelikes we've played, then I would definitely give Operation Steel a check, because there's definitely some great gameplay here. But with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have 3 more games to look at for this week's Spotlight. And as always, if you're interested in my books on design, then check these out. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with free-to-play coming in 2022. For our next game, this is Time Break Chronicles. And this is probably one of the more intriguing games that we've seen on our spotlights. The footage that you're watching is taken from its early access and may not represent the current version of the game. But this is an turn-based RPG roguelike persistence. And yes, it's kind of very weird to pronounce there. But what our game is that we are building parties out of essentially multiverse of various characters who are trying to save everything from an evil force. So your party is made up of people who represent different time periods, different classes, and there are synergies and unique things based on who you bring into your parties. So there's one character, I think was a plague doctor, who could poison everyone, but then could give them bonuses or heal them based on the amount of poison stacks they have. And this is just classic turn-based RPG design taken to the very extreme. There are dozens of unique classes in this game. Everyone has their own abilities, their own passives, and if you're the kind of person who likes to build very specialized or unique parties and then let all the synergies and combinations work for you, then you're going to love this game. The structure is more of a roguelike kind of design, as each kind of quest takes you on a procedurally generated area. Basically, you pick your options from a choice node or a decision tree similar to that of Slay the Spire. Get to the end, fight the boss. If you can beat that, you'll move on to the next story. there is persistence in the form of upgrading your starting base, which in turn will allow you to boost characters of specific types, give your characters new weapons or passives, and there is just, again, a whole lot to mess around in. And I know some of you are going to ask this question because I asked this one on stream: is this RPG Maker? And the answer is no. This was a custom engine developed by the designer. So this is one of those games that it is a very specific audience who's going to enjoy this one. If you have no interest in RPGs, especially turn-based ones, this game is not for you. But if you love this genre and you're looking for a very well developed and involving take on it, this is definitely the game for you, much like how I recommended Gem Wizard's Tactics earlier in this video. For our next game, this is Luciform. This was sent as a key from the developer, and this is a 2D kind of endless runner platformer kind of experience. We play as this little rabbit ball, I'm not sure exactly what it is, and our friends have been kidnapped, and it's up to us to go on a journey to save them. And that journey is going to involve a lot of dying and probably falling into pits. So what you probably don't notice from the footage you're seeing, that this is an endless runner combined with kind of color swapping platforming. So you can only interact with platforms that are the same color as you, and you can kind of auto run as well as climb on walls that are around. So the challenge of this game is that you not only have to accommodate for your jumps in terms of where you're going and how high, but also what color you are as you move around. And the game does throw in a lot of those, very quick swapping kind of challenges. My main problem with this game is with the endless runner style. As you can see, as I'm kind of struggling with it, is that you are always in motion. And that means because of how you have to jump and the angles of the platforming, there's a lot of cases where you're just going to have to keep going back and forth on a platform, hoping to be at the right spot on it in order to make the jump forward. You can't really fully plan out your jumps as much in a traditional platformer. It reminds me a little bit of the issues I had with Super Meat Boy Forever. And when you throw in the fact that you're having to constantly swap colors as you're going through it, adds additional difficulty to this game. Luciform is not a game I would recommend, unfortunately, because I'm just not a fan of this kind of endless runner style. But if it doesn't bother you and you're looking for a very challenging platformer to play, then I would say give this one at least a check. But if the thought of doing another endless runner doesn't excite you, then this game is just not going to work. For our final game of this spotlight, this is Good Night Night. And what you're seeing is from the early access play we did of the press key, and may not represent the current version of the game. But this is a satirical top-down action-adventure game. Think The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, but with some roguelike elements. We play as the remaining knight who must climb a giant tower and of course collect all manner of crazy items, upgrades, and of course if they die we go back to the start. So the big elements that are different about Good Night Night: there is a stealth aspect with you doing more damage with backstabs, and the game features a more slower paced combat compared to what we would normally see in a Zelda game that is typically about, mashing the attack button. So what we play this one on stream, that it does feature procedurally generated areas, and I believe they're going for more the handmade sticking rooms together, although there may be rooms that are just absolutely just 100% proc gen, but it was kind of hard to tell from our play of this build. So as you go through, you're going to get different items, and the challenge is that it all adds up to your overburden. So you want to only make sure you have the right items equipped, and you can mix and match as you see fit. And from when we play this one on stream, this one seems like just a very well built kind of Zelda roguelike-ish kind of gameplay. The only reason why we didn't play more of this one was simply that with it being in early access, I didn't want to get my fill on it so early in its development. And since we did play this one on stream, there have been several major content updates to the game. And Goodnight Night is an example of one of those titles that individually, the mechanics here, we've seen them all done before in some capacity. But it's definitely a case of being greater than the sum of its parts. And if you are looking for another kind of action roguelike to check out, then I would say give this one a look. And it's definitely a game that I want to return to as we see it get further through in its early access, or even when the game is released. So with all that said, we're going to wrap up this week's Spotlight here. I'd like to thank every developer who submitted a game. You'll find links to everything in the description down below. Be sure to do all the liking and subscribing, and check out our Discord and Patreon. And if you'd like to once again submit a game for a future stream and video, please get in touch. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.